Welcome to Evil GM Tricks number 2. Give them what they want. So if you've been a GM for any length of time, you are familiar with characters that are going to ask for things that are basically too powerful. They're going to be a problem if they're introduced to your game, whether mechanically or otherwise. And so oftentimes we're very careful about letting these things in. And this is a trick where you're actually going to allow those things in, but with a twist. And when I say with a twist, we're talking kind of a monkey paw style twist, but in a way that characters will like. So I'll start with a Shadowrun 3rd Edition campaign that I was running. Many of my best campaigns were Shadowrun 3rd Edition. And my buddy Trevor was playing a street samurai. In this game, you have a certain amount of essence, and when you run out of essence, you can't have any more cyberware. So he wanted cyber eyes and couldn't really afford them and asked if he could have them anyway. And I said no. They weren't available in character creation, intending to give them to him. And how I did this was his character was sent on a solo mission before he joined the rest of the group, and went to clear out a scientific installation to find out what had happened, because there was a scientist inside who hadn't reported in and they wanted to know what had become of him. And so he heads into this underground compound and there's this weird smell and he can hear this chittering like insects in the distance, and then he hears the buzzing of wings, and eventually he realizes it's a wasp nest. There are giant wasps and giant wasp spirits everywhere, and so he's got to fight his way through. Well, he fails and gets captured. And he wakes up and a wasp shaman, who is a horrific thing to look upon, is standing before him and takes control of him like a puppet and forces him to use his cyber spurs to put out his own eyes. So now he's a prisoner, blinded, in pain, in the basement of this hive. And so far as he knows, maybe he's there for food. Maybe they're going to lay eggs in him. He doesn't know, but it's going to be something terrible. And so I, as the GM, got to describe in darkness to him, because he's blind, exactly what he smelled and heard and what was happening. And a couple of days passed, and then he hears gunshots and some sort of team approaching, and he can hear their comm relay, and he can hear explosions, and they get closer and closer, and eventually they rescue him and they take him out. And the next time he wakes up, he can see, and he's testing out these new cyber eyes that have been installed, and it was a gift from his new employer. So how I introduced him to the rest of the group in the game was I gave him exactly what he wanted. He wanted these beta-aware cyber eyes, which are something that a player would not normally be able to have. And I needed a reason why that would fit in the game. And so through a role-play experiment, I led him through this, and I made sure that he always valued those eyes. It wasn't just a number on his character sheet. This was something that he had paid a price for, that he had really remembered how and why he had gotten it. And they were important for the rest of that campaign. So that was a lot of fun. The second instance that I've given somebody something what they want is a lot more, or can be a lot more, game breaking, because we're talking power level. And you want to be careful with this, because sometimes people will ask for something that is too powerful and will break combat. And so I had to think carefully about this, but because we were playing in a Shadowrun 3rd Edition game, which is extremely lethal, I knew I could curtail it if I had to. I had a player ask to play a race that I wouldn't normally allow. There's a race called were-tigers, and were-tigers can regenerate to full health every round. And this is doubly important in Shadowrun, because unlike a game like Dungeons & Dragons, where you just have hit points, you have increasing wound penalties as you take more damage. And so somebody who's been shot a couple of times can't really even fight. Their dice pools are significantly reduced. They suck at everything. So it's really dangerous. Well, if you're somebody who can just regenerate to full health every single action, then you don't have to worry about those penalties. You just don't ever face them. And so I could see the look on this character's face, because at that time he was really a power gamer. In other words, he cared more about making a character that could overcome every challenge in that area that he wanted to excel, in his case combat. He wanted to be a combat god. And I thought about it, and I thought about the campaign I was going to run, and I asked myself, what kind of impact would a combat god have? Would him playing this character, I believe her name was Jade, she was a were-tiger, so would allowing him to play Jade crush my campaign in some way? Would it really hurt things, or would it damage things? And I thought about it, and I'm like, no. Like, it would give them a better chance in combat. Him, this character Jade being stronger in combat. But would it break things? No, I didn't think so. But at the same time, I wanted to introduce it in a way where he really valued what he'd been given and understood the weight of it. So how I approached that, so that it wasn't just a number on his character sheet, is I played it out realistically. And when I read the rules about were-tigers in Shadowrun, as it turns out, a were-tiger is not a person that can turn into a tiger. They're a tiger that can turn into a person. And so were-tigers don't have rights. They're not considered people. So a multinational corporation, remember this is Shadowrun, where multinational corporations are always doing nefarious things. They basically chipped his character and let her think she escaped. So she thinks she got away from Renraku and is being hunted by them, when in reality, they know where she is at all times. And throughout the game, that was, a flaw that impacted the group negatively repeatedly. And eventually the player came to realize that it was his fault, and it was his fault because of the race he had chosen specifically. So I watched this awareness kind of grow in him. But it didn't come to a head until I put him into a really tough roleplay situation. Renraku finally acquired a male were-tiger. And if you wanted to breed tigers and you had a male and you had a female, you just, put them in a cage and try and get them to mate, right? Well, I had his character recaptured by Renraku, and it was the party that did it. So the rest of the party was approached, and they actually took down their own member and brought her in. And she woke up in a cage, and I asked the player, can you think of any realistic reason why you wouldn't mate? This is a sensitive subject. It definitely was with that character. We were a lot younger, and I probably could have treated it a little bit better, but I never intended to have any lasting consequences for the character, nor would I. But it did force the player to confront it. Like, is there a reason? So we went over what tigers are like and what they would do in that situation. And the player couldn't think of a reason why his character wouldn't mate with a male tiger. And I left the decision up to him. I said I wasn't going to make it happen if he said it wasn't kosher. But he said that no, Jade would do so. And that if she got pregnant, she would take care of her cubs. And from that moment on, I saw a total shift in the way that he played the character. It wasn't just about killing. All of a sudden, that character had a lot more depth than she had before, and it was coming about as a direct result of harnessing something that would have been considered to be too powerful. I put it in there, I thought about the consequences it could have, I made the character pay a story price for it in a way that would make them value what they'd been given. And I've done it countless times in countless games, so if you have done so and have an example, feel free to post that in the comments. If you have questions about how to implement this particular trick, let me know. But it's pretty straightforward. Think about what it is they're asking for. Is it too powerful? Maybe like a little bit stronger than it should be? Maybe you can still give it to them, but sort of have a but in there somewhere. There's a price for it. And if there is a price for it, you can make sure that that's paid through the game in a way that hopefully the characters enjoy. I didn't force agency away from this character. I didn't take that away and make his character be pregnant. No, she didn't get pregnant. I left all that stuff in the character's hands. And getting to that point, it appeared maybe to that character they didn't have agency, but the ending is what matters in evil GM tricks. It's getting them to think one thing is going on and then having a misdirect where it comes back to, oh, I actually enjoy how that worked out. That's the whole purpose of a GM trick. So I guess look at these examples, try to think your own, and I've got a million more you'll hear about in other GM tricks. But before you say no, the next time your players ask for something that you instinctively would say, no, you can't have it, think about giving them what they want. Maybe it could be a lot of fun.